presentation is titled 10 Questions Every Believer in God Must Answer, and I consider it an updated version of the extremely successful and wildly popular presentation by GII Video called 10 Questions That Every Intelligent Christian Must Answer. I would like to explore a different angle from theirs, which is more concerned with biblical incoherencies. This video's angle is concentrating on the God concept's incoherence. The questions will mostly be referring to the Judeo-Christian God, since that God is adhered to by an astounding 1.9 billion people. Question number 1. How does God create or do anything that is not akin to magic, witchcraft, or sorcery? The implication of this is that your God cannot account for anything that is done or created on earth or in the universe, since saying he does things by what amounts to witchcraft and sorcery is no better than a child saying the presents under the tree got there because of Santa Claus. If your God creates or does anything by saying words, batting his eyes, wiggling his nose, waving his hand, or through telekinesis, your answer is insufficient, because that's the same as saying he does things by sorcery. Why is it that the vast majority of human beings are abhorred and repulsed by the idea of an Orwellian-type big brother, watching their every move, judging their actions, being privy to their private lives and thoughts, and planning their lives, yet the Judeo-Christian God is said to do all these things, but the followers of this God either have no problem with that or embrace it enthusiastically? The significance of this question is that it is totally incoherent and hypocritical to have no desire for an earthly Orwellian big brother, yet allow your God to play the exact same role, yet have no issue with it. Many believers in God will say, well, our God, unlike the Orwellian big brother, knows what's right and has our best interests at heart. Guess what? I'm sure the earthly Orwellian big brother thinks it knows what's right and has your best interests at heart as well. So basically asserting that your God has perfectly good intentions for you does not absolve the hypocrisy and contradictions inherent in resisting one big brother but allowing the other. Name a single thing in the entire known universe or earth that was created by a single designer or causative agent. The implication is, if you cannot name one thing created or designed by a lone designer or causative agent, God cannot be posted as a designer or creator of anything on earth or in the universe. At the very least, the monotheistic ideology will be falsified, because believers of the Judeo-Christian God would have to largely concede to a universe and earth that has designs created by potentially millions of gods. How can God be the first cause when he does not escape infinite regress? God is said to have been in existence before the universe. It is said that whatever begins to exist must have a cause. Since God is said to have existed before the universe, his decision to create the universe began to exist and will require a prior cause. This cause would need one as well, and so on, to where God's thoughts would suffer infinite regress. Since the act of exercising his will to create the universe began to exist, God would never have created the universe, since he could never traverse the infinity of prior causes to his decision to get to the salient act of deciding to create. Why do you appear to be so enthusiastic about worshiping, praising, and following a God that is said to be a global murderer? The significance of this question rests on the utterly baffling incoherency of not only worshiping a God that would have flooded innocent women, children, baby animals, and living nature, but to constantly make excuses to exonerate this wholesale murder. Oh, it wasn't God's fault, it was mankind's. Oh, he gave them a choice, they disobeyed. Oh, they were all sinners, they deserved it. On and on and on. Since when is it okay to give excuses for someone to do something so massively evil? I don't hear anyone saying, oh, it was okay for Hitler to kill Jews since they were given time to leave Germany before it was too late, so it's their fault. They should have heeded the warning signs. How can your would God create human beings or any complex life when that is a violation of the law of biogenesis? Many theists believe the law of biogenesis refutes the idea that life could come from non-life. Actually, it proves that a supernatural creator is impossible, since it shows that spontaneous generation of fully formed, complex organisms is a violation of that law. When trying to answer the question, saying God created the laws, therefore he is above and not bound by them, fails, since that rebuttal commits the fallacy of special pleading, which is an attempt to create a fallacious double standard for your deity. Give a single example of something perfect giving rise to something imperfect, and give an example of something infinite creating a finite entity. If you cannot render any examples, then it becomes blatantly obvious that it is absurd to posit a supposedly perfect being creating imperfect things. It is absurd beyond credulity to posit an infinite being begetting finite creations, which is also a patent violation of the law of identity and causality as applied in this instance to contingency. How did God create himself? This makes no sense, since that is the same as saying God existed before he existed. The implication is that God created himself. Don't bother saying he was always there, because that's just another way of saying God is self-caused, which means God caused himself, which is why it's the same as saying he existed before he existed. This again underscores the incoherence and impossibility of the Judeo-Christian God, since believers in God often mock the idea of the universe being self-caused or something coming from nothing. Yet to further underscore this point, not only would God be self-caused, but he would also be self-caused from nothing, because saying something always existed is a cheap way to get around the notion that God was always there from nothing, since no process or prior entity can account for his being extant. If you say God is not adherent to contingency, that answer fails, since that means God cannot exist, since he is absent of cause and effect. And even if he did exist, a being absent of and not adherent to cause and effect cannot feel emotion, make decisions, answer prayers, or do anything that a person or God is said to do. How do you account for reality, morals, and the laws of logic if you believe in God? Further, how do you account for free will as a God believer when theism presupposes predetermined fatalism, since by definition, objective truths are diametrically opposed to origination from a subjective immanence? If your God were real, he was solely determined and be responsible for supposed moral universals, reality, and the laws of logic. You cannot account for the laws of logic, morals, or even reality if God were real, since those things would be beyond your control and would be grounded in a subjective source. You can never truly know if what you think is real was not an illusion by your God or a part of a divine experiment. A non-theist reality would have laws of logic, truth, reality, and morality be objective, since they are not subject to a single interpretation or solitarily confined to a single entity's total control. Further, due to your God's supposed omniscience and all-powerful nature, your life will be predetermined and your fate already decided. The salient and frightening implication of this is that belief in God robs man of his free agency and effectively makes us automaton-like robots, subject to the will of an outside deity beyond our control, ultimate understanding, and self-determination. How does divine consciousness account for existence when consciousness presupposes existence? If you believe in God, you are certain that a divine godly consciousness is responsible for existence rather than existence being responsible for consciousness. It is impossibly incoherent to posit that God and his consciousness existed before existence. So in other words, the question is, how is causality and consciousness not dependent upon existence? If you cannot answer this question and logically reconcile this, it logically falsifies belief in God completely.